Okay, all right, he's ready to start, and if you can see up around the desk here, that's where he's going to be, somewhere, and this is,
Somebody can't see this.
but Pam is going to do an official, introduction. So Pam, would you like to?
Well, I hope you will I'm happy that Luke agreed to do this. He's a wonderful artist. He's a decorator. He's a painter. He's a good friend of mine. As many of you know, he's been helping me with my new house, transforming it. It was an ugly little. It was pretty outside, but ugly in the inside. It was so dark and dated with wallpaper, and it just looked so dreary. And he's absolutely made it into a gym, and we're still working on it. So I'll keep posting on Facebook until people say stop this. It's either post food or post house. I don't post.
Oh, do house.
Anyway, I'm going to let Luke go ahead and talk about a little bit about himself. His background's very interesting, and he's got a few things to share with us.
Good.
Okay. Hi, everybody. As Pam said, I'm Luke Edward, and thank you for coming. I appreciate it. You're such a wonderful looking bunch. I had intended this morning to do a demonstration on painting a piece of furniture because that's a big part of my income in my store and my business. But real quick story, I had vertigo problems 3 years ago. Fast forward a year, they finally diagnosed me with Meniere's disease, and I've been doing fine. And yesterday I had a horrible attack. And so that's a lack of balance. So we're going to do something different today, taking a different direction. And I started out with a finance degree from University of South Alabama, and I worked all through college for Alabama Power Company. Boring. It was horrible. And I thought I would stay there forever. And I ended up leaving, and a friend of mine had moved to San Francisco, and she said, "Oh, move out here, you'll get a great job in a couple of days." And I was terrified, but I left. And I went to work for Lloyd's of London writing letters of credit for reinsurance, another desk job that was horrendous. I did have views of the entire Golden Gate from the 42nd floor of the Wells Fargo building, but that was not worth it. So anyway, so I went back to school, and I actually got a license to cut hair. And with that money, I took that money and I went to San Francisco Academy of Art University. And I got an art degree, which is what I really wanted to do. And so I got a BA in painting and moved on from there, and actually did fine art for a while. I had art in Martin Lawrence galleries on Powell Street, and it was just not an easy life with, okay. Can you turn the music down? Thanks. It wasn't an easy life getting a paycheck every 6 months or every 8 months, and, and them taking half of it. So anyway, I went to the Day Studio in San Francisco, and she was a decorative arts painter that was a protege of Isabel O'Neill. And there's a book out that's been out for many, many years, probably 50 years, by Isabel O'Neill called The Art of the Painted Finish. And basically it's painted furniture and things like that. So I took every single course she had, and I ended up starting to make really good money, glazing walls and striping furniture and gilding frames and this, that, and the other. And so through that job, I met somebody at the gym, and it was a lady that I became friends with, and we started taking classes in writing icons. You don't technically paint an icon, you write it because it tells a story about the trilogy or Christ or what. It's Eastern Orthodox art on religious art. And through that class, the 4th year, that was taught by a priest from Florence, Italy, I got a fellowship at the Academia in Art Restoration and frame gilding and frame repair. So that was the extent of my education. And then I made a good living in San Francisco for a while. My mom and dad were getting older, so my partner and I moved back here, and I opened a studio on Fairhope Avenue called Surreal Surfaces, and I did that for many years, and moved on Delamar. And so you ask about the retail part, maybe. I got into this by accident. I had a client I was glazing walls for. They were in Paris for 4 weeks, and the decorator that came in made a mess of their house. She ordered furniture that wouldn't fit through the doorways and things like that, so it was all sitting on the porch when they got back. And so I felt so bad for them, I kind of came up with some solutions about how all this could be fixed, and I ended up finishing their house, and that was my first decorating job. So from that sprang up the retail store on Delamar, and it just kind of snowballed from there. But I still do a lot of art, and for me personally, it's my life and my hobby, my passion. And so anyway, so not doing the furniture demonstration today because of my unfortunate day yesterday, I thought I'd share with you some of the things that I've learned through the years about finishing furniture and things like that are kind of interesting, and show you some of the samples. Everything I've got in this box is here because I did samples for clients, showing them what their finished product would be. And this is a watercolor that was done on a server, an English server, that matched the China pattern.
I'm gonna walk around.
So she couldn't come up with anything that would match. So I said, why don't we just do a motif of your China on the thing? And it was absolutely beautiful. And I wish I had the pictures, but I don't know. They're in a box somewhere. This is malachite, this is all done with water-based glazes. And one of the reasons I went to the Day Studio is because she had converted everything to water from oil, which was historically the way it was done many years ago. And in California, the VOC laws had changed with paint, so you had to get a special license to buy oil-based paint, so it was just easier to convert, especially since I do this for a living. This was a painted furniture piece, chippy paint.
That's cool.
And that's water-based.
It's all water-based, yeah. This is actually a box that I did. It's horn. Animal horn.
Oh, beautiful.
When you cut into the horn, you get these striations. So, but as you pass them around, you'll see the, you can feel
You
them.
can only do 2 at a time.
Yeah. Here's another horn sample.
That's gorgeous.
These are masonite. So anytime I would do a finish on for somebody, I always do it on 2x2 board of masonite, because the last thing you want to do is put a surprise on the wall and they hate it. So you always get them to sign off on whatever they're approving. This is ivory with the cross hatching, and all these were done on furniture tops, tabletops, or things like that. So this is fun. This is cotton muslin. And you take the cotton muslin and you mix it with 20% Elmer's glue into drywall mud. And you trowel it on your cotton, and then it dries, and you roll it in 2 or 3 different directions, and you get the little cracks. Isn't that cool? And you can actually cover, I covered a piece of dining room furniture for Melissa Mann, the builder, and I just cut my insets in for the doors and things. Now the motif on that is sterling silver, and I acid etched it to tarnish it. This is Venetian plaster.
Oh, wow.
And if you've ever been to Italy, you've seen pietra dura, which is the inlaid marble.
Yeah.
That's what it simulates, except this cost me about $1.25 to make. And if you bought this picture, it'd be $600 or $700. So, and I did that on a box. And then this is, I do metallics. This is sterling silver that's been acid etched to tarnish it. Gold leaf motif that was done on furniture. So, let's see what else I've got here. This is lapis, which is, you know, all the King Louis XIV had the, and this is all water-based. This is gold mica flakes. So basically, you're just copying nature, you know. Let's see what else we've got here.
Do you still paint furniture?
All the time. You can go back here and see this room before. In fact, I'll tell you, Bonnie is a guest here with Pam Hunter, and I painted a mirror for a client, and I have YouTube videos I'm starting to make, and Bill does the photography or the videotaping. So a lady brought in a mirror, and I did it over. It was black and gold and red, and did it in gray and white to make it look more current with today's styles. And anyway, so Pam calls and says, I have a friend that wants you to do a mirror for her. And as it turns out, it's the identical mirror. What are the odds? I mean, it's the exact same mirror. So I was going to do that as a demo today, but it's a different finish and all that. But I do have Luke Edward home videos that you can look and see. I'm trying to teach some of this. I can't keep up with people, and everybody goes, don't give your secrets away. But you know what? I'm not afraid to share anything. And everybody picks up their own way of doing things, you know. So this is 23 karat gold, and I've just done a 4 quad of different ways it could be finished when I show clients, you know. I'm getting ready to gold leaf a frame for a lady and show her what the effects would be.
Do you get most of your supplies around here locally, or do you have to order on the internet and go to fancy places and all
You
that?
know, something like gold leaf or whatever I order from SEP, S-E-P-P, they're in New York and they've been around for 50 years. And if you're a professional, they'll give you some sort of discount. And I order gold leaf in stacks like this. It's 25 to, you know, 500 to a box because I go through it.
Yeah.
So, but this actually, these were 2 samples I did for a client. They bought a condo at Opal in Orange Beach. And this is a funny story. All the condos, the Opal is round or oval shaped, and so every floor is a condo by itself. So they bought this condo, it was brand new, and they paid $1.4 million for it, and they had $4 million into it by the time they finished. And the reason why is because this is the master closet. Yeah. This is her master closet. And this was all done with 23 karat gold. And I tried to tell them you might want to do composite. Composite is brass, nickel, and copper. But no, they had the money, so she wanted the gold. And I said, you realize a hurricane could come walk? Oh, they didn't care. So anyway, so they put Minka Lavery wallpaper in the guest bathroom, which was Swarovski crystals that were put on the paper. It was $1,000 a half roll.
Oh.
Yeah, so I always thought, well, you know, why wasn't I born rich instead of beautiful, you know? So, but anyway, so in the kitchen ended up being like this too. They wanted, it was all green and gilt, and at the end of it, I just got sick of it. I thought, God, you guys think you're like Louis the 14th, or you know. So anyway, but it was their taste. They loved it, and you know. So, but anyway, so that's where that came from. But it goes on and on. This is a Japanese technique
Oh, I love that one.
where I took molding paste to get the texture you can feel in the. This is Nurigami, which is rubbed through, and again, the branch is done with the molding paste,
Pass that one around. if I can.
and then the technique to give it age would be to rub through to the bottom color. So,
Do you, Luke, do you do classes for this kind of stuff?
you know, I did for a while on Bancroft Street, and
Would you do a class
I mean,
if we
'cause
got
I
enough
think
out of
you-
our group
I would
to do
love
it?
to, yeah,
Would you
yeah,
consider
yeah.
that? 'Cause I
Wow.
yeah.
and in a class, you know.
How many do you need to do a class? And
Well, to keep it manageable, you'd probably want to limit it to 5 or 6 or something like that, but
Okay.
you could do more classes.
Okay.
And you could pick the way you want to do it. When I was teaching vocational art, I call it vocational art, it was a whole week-long thing, which you don't have to do, but what I did was I provided everything they worked on, and they took home samples that were sellable or they could use to demonstrate their work. So if you wanted to organize a class, you could say, well, we want to learn gilding, or we want to learn furniture glazing, or we want to learn one of these techniques on the board, or 2 or 3 of the techniques. And if that's the case, then I provide all the cutouts and everything and the materials, and I teach you how to do it. If you wanted to do something like, say you wanted to do one of the techniques on a jewelry box, that might take more like a 2-day class or something, you know. If you wanted to put one of these little motifs on your, thank you, like this little cutout guy. See, that's gold leaf. Thank you, dear. And I mean, it makes a pretty, now this is English instead of chinoiserie. This one is chinoiserie, little Japanese figure. And you can't see it, but the little figures are raised, so it gives you dimension on that. You can pass that down too. But if you wanted to do something like that, where you actually had a project to take home, you'd have to invest a couple of days or whatever. So
I would love to take
Yeah.
one of those.
What did you say about this one?
you can do that way too. That 2 ways. You can do it with joint compound mixed with Elmer's glue. But if you want to put it on furniture, I recommend doing real molding paste, which is the stuff that's expensive because it hardens like concrete.
But on wall, like old wallpaper that
That would be perfect. And that's done with a, you know what a graining comb is?
I think so.
It's metal and it has little tines. It looks like a metal hairbrush. That made those shapes.
And is this like acrylic paint or what?
It's metallic acrylic paint. Yeah. So the bottom of it was probably a base color, and then I put a pearlized color on top of it. So yeah.
I'd like to speak to you later, and maybe you can define like the categories
Yeah.
of classes.
Oh, sure,
And
yeah.
then we can pop emails out, and
Yeah.
maybe probably 6 people, no
Yeah.
more than 6, 7.
But and one of the other things too,
See if you're interested, yeah.
chalk paint is the big rage, and there's nothing wrong with it. But, and I do add chalk. I add calcium carbonate or whiting from Volfield into my paint. And if you watch my videos, you can see. But the big thing about chalk paint is you don't have to sand. And that's true to an extent. You don't have to sand or prep if you have a pretty decent piece of furniture. But if you have something that's been sitting in a room and it's got a lot of grease or cooking grease, nothing's going to stick to it. I don't care if it's chalk or whatever. So I tend to take you from the beginning to the end so that you get a good durable finish that's going to last or whatever. Especially in my case, I'm selling what I do, so it has to be, I can't have you call me a week later and say the paint came off or it chipped off or there was a rough spot or something. So I do this, I teach you everything, basically the chemistry of how the system works. But it's not bad, it really isn't. I have a lot of shortcuts in the last 30 years I've learned, which are really fast, you know. I used to wipe down furniture with denatured alcohol, and that's probably why I'm a little brain dead now. But Bill taught me that it's so toxic. So now I use a product called Clean Strip by, what's it called? Deglosser by Clean Strip. And it's water-based, and it has a little odor, but not like, it smells like medicinal, but it doesn't eat your brain away, your brain cells. So I have little tips like that that would help you out in the class, and you know, so.
Yeah.
But it is fun to learn, and it's not as hard as it looks. A lot of the techniques you become really proficient at because of repetition, you know, things like that. So, but. And a lot of times if I see, like this graining on this piece of furniture is called cerusing. It's where there is lime wax that's put into the grain of the wood, and that's where you get the white effect. A lot of these finishes, people will come and say, I really like this, can you do this on a piece of furniture? And yeah, I can copy anything just because of my experience, you know. So a lot of times if the grain's not there on something, I take a graining tool, put the grain in it, and then put the paint on it, and then I get my own grain.
And do your texture.
Yeah. And
Now that's,
and that really is really kind of cool. Though, and the way you get the grain to raise up is you mix maybe a little chalk with your paint to give it body, or a little molding paste, like we were talking about on that board, and it helps it stand up, so that you actually get a true grain. So.
And what do you call that?
Molding. Oh, this is called cerusing. It's the technique of putting wax, lime wax, into the grain of the wood. And you can do it on any grain of wood that has an open grain, like oak or walnut, or, you know, maple it wouldn't work on, because there's no grain really. So, yeah. But one of my favorite things to do is to paint the 1940s furniture that has that red look to it. Duncan 5. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Everybody's got grandmother had a Duncan 5 table and chairs or server or whatever. And there's nothing to work with on that either. So that's a good candidate for taking something like a drawer that's smooth and putting the graining into it. And then a lot of times you can mix gray paint with water or half glaze or whatever. And then you get that driftwood look that everybody's so crazy about. You know, that gray and white, the more rustic.
say that again.
You would put the graining
I'm gonna
down.
follow the driftwood.
Yeah. So let's say, for instance, you wanted to do, look like pine wood or something that was glazed in gray paint. You would paint it with the pine colored base coat. Then you would do your grain in a brown, so that's the grain of the pine, with maybe molding paste or sometimes I add heavy water-based clear coat. And you grain it, it dries almost instantaneously, and then you take like gray paint mixed with half water and you paint it on and take a terry cloth and wipe it off, and you've got your driftwood. So,
Ta-da.
I know what I want to do. I want to take that class.
That kind of thing.
I wanna take that
I'm
class.
interested. Yeah, me too.
now that would be fun.
I have a piece of furniture we can use for
Yeah, just
demonstration.
texturizing.
Oh, I have to.
We can do it on a pine.
Or we could all
Yeah.
bring.
We can do it at my house.
Let's all bring a small
Yeah.
thing. Listen to me, I'm organizing your class. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, that's fine too, yeah.
Get excited.
Yeah.
Can I toot your horn, man?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
When I just moved here, my son bought me a house here because my parents are here. I was coming every weekend. And a dear friend of mine in Birmingham, she was a college roommate at Alabama, she said, you have to get this man to help you. And I'm not a snob at all. And I know I'm very bohemian. And I was like, I called this man and he showed up. I said, now look, I've never done this before, okay? And we kind of connected because I'm green and I want to upcycle what I have. And he charges such a low fee to come out. But what he did for me, everyone that walks in my house right now, they're like, well, you've been there. Oh my God.
And I did that. I went, oh.
But he taught me, like the stuff he's telling you right now that he's doing classes. He's like, you like projects? I went, yeah. Okay, do da 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 da. And so I did mercury glass on some things, and like a glass that I already had, did the mercury glass, put it on a table, and it's like, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And his fee was like, and then he came back and hung all my pictures. and just joyful to work with, such a plethora of information,
Well, I appreciate
and
that.
a connection of just a friend.
Well,
So if you have little projects like that, it's really, he's not expensive at all. You really should charge more.
Would you be quiet?
I do like, I like to be fair about my time, and I like referrals are the best. So I figure if I treat somebody fairly, they'll refer me. And I always feel like if it's a referral, it's going to be a good client. It usually is. And not everybody's the same. Some do different things, and that's how I met Pam, you know.
Yeah.
So,
My mover told me about me. I had these huge mirrors that needed to be hung, and I was by myself, and I thought, and I said, well, ask Scott Childress. I said, would you hang these for me? He says, no, I can't, but I'll give you a name of somebody that will. And he says, he's really good too with other things. And I'm like, okay.
He comes
It's an
over, hangs my
understatement.
mirrors, moved my secretary because I had it in the wrong position. We talked about the ceiling and what we could do to that. Then he ended up hanging, I can't tell you how many plates. And in one day he was finished. And he's charged me less than the guy that power washed my driveway, and it was a terrible job of power washing. And I wanted to say, are you sure this is right, what you're charging me for this? And then he came back and did some painting, so I'm telling you.
You know, you have to adapt your life to what's current, what's happening, and everybody in here is an artist, right? And does some medium or whatever. And when I first got out of college, I used to finely paint beautiful. I would copy old master paintings, and I would copy Salvador Dali because I wanted to learn where my thing was, my niche. And I used to spend hours and hours and hours doing things, and you didn't make any money. You know, you made no money. I mean, so for instance, now I don't want to discount my talent, but like this is I took an airboat ride and I took pictures of the Delta, Mobile Delta, which is pretty, and I recommend it sometime. But see, I do this with a palette knife now, and I don't think it through. Not that it's fabulous or anything like that, but I make more money on this than I did repainting the Mona Lisa and trying to copy some old master.
It's beautiful.
You know, and this is all done with knife and from a photograph. And I kind of took liberty with the colors because I don't like. You know, this is done in the winter, so I had to add some color to it. But you know, I'm all over the map when it comes to doing art. I just love everything, and so it's a passion for me, and that's why I don't mind teaching because I like sharing it. You know, so. But anyway.
Okay, any more questions, ladies? We'll talk over lunch about classes and maybe
Sounds
we'll
good,
get
yeah.
an idea of different
Yeah.
areas and stuff.
Okay.
Like Deb and I think are on the same page. I do dimensional things,
Yeah.
sculpting.
Where do
So
you
I'm
like to do
interested
your
in,
classes?
yeah.
Well, if
Yeah, where do you do it?
if I did 5 or 6 people, I could do it here on site. If we wanted to get a class bigger together, we'd have to find something where we had a bathroom and a sink.
Okay,
Yeah, so,
all right, well,
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
doable, yeah,
Yeah.
that's very doable. But you'd really prefer, could you have more if you had the space for it, or do you really prefer
No, I
to keep
can-
it about 6?
No, I can teach 100 people.
Okay.
But if you want to do something that's really detailed, like striping or doing gold leaf or something like that, you might need a little more attention. Whereas if I were to demonstrate doing a piece of furniture and we were all sort of on the same page,
Yeah.
I could handle that.
Well, see,
50
that's
people.
what I was
Yeah.
thinking, if
Yeah.
we can start talking, and we'll do that at lunch,
Yeah.
kind of like the different areas we're all interested in, and see if we can
Sure, yeah.
stay in like-minded things, and then that
Yeah.
makes it easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that, because,
Yeah.
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 Been there, done that, got that t-shirt. All right, anybody else want to say anything, or?
We could possibly
Nancy?
do it at the Daphne Art Center.
Oh, well, Nancy,
Oh.
Nancy directs the
Well, that would be
she's
fun,
the
yeah.
director. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know Nancy, okay.
Yeah.
Wow,
Awesome. So,
great.
well, I hope it was interesting for you guys. and
Oh,
I-
please. Yeah. Well, thank you, appreciate it.